Peace and blessings. Today's topic on November 19th, 2021 is our reading from the Holy Koran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali. We are reading chapter 19. Jesus appears fully materialized to the Eastern sages in the palace of Prince Ravana in India, to the magician's priest in Persia. Three wise men speak in praise of the personality of the Nazarene. 1. Ravana, prince of India, gave a feast. His palace in Orissa was the place where the men of thought from all of the farther east were wont to meet. Ravana was the prince with whom the child Jesus went to India with when 12 years old. The feast was made in honor of the wise men of the East, and the guests were Mangstay, Vidyapati, and Lamas. The wise men sat about the table talking about the needs of India and the world. The door unto the banquet hall was in the east. A vacant chair was at the table to the east. And as the wise man talked, a stranger entered unannounced, and raising up his hands in benediction said, "All hail." A halo rested on his head, and light, unlike light of the sun, filled all the room. And Jesus sat down in the vacant chair, and then the wise men knew it was the Gentile prophet who had come. And Jesus said, "Behold, for I am risen from the dead. Look at my hands, my feet, my side. The Roman soldiers pierced my hands and feet with nails, and then one pierced my heart. They put me in a tomb, and then I wrestled with the conqueror of men. I conquered death. I stamped upon him and rose, brought immortality to light, and painted on the walls of time a rainbow for the sons of men. And what I did, all men should do. The gospel of the resurrection of the dead is not confined to the Jew and Greek. It is the heritage of every man, time, and clime. And I am here a demonstrator of the power of man." Then he arose and pressed the hand of every man and of the royal host and said, "Behold, I am not myth made of the fleeting winds, for I am flesh and bone and brawn, but I can cross the borderland at will." And they talked together there a long, long time. Then Jesus said, "I go my way, but you shall go to all the world and teach the gospel of the omnipotence of man, the power of truth, the resurrection of the dead. He who believes this gospel of the Son of Man shall never die. The dead shall live again." Then Jesus disappeared, but he had sown the seed. The words of life were spoken in Orissa, and all of India heard. The magician priests were in the silence of Persepolis, and Casper and the magician masters, who were the first to greet the child of promise in the shepherd's home in Bethlehem, were with the priests. And Jesus came and sat with them. A crown of lights was on his head. And when the silence ended, Casper said, "A master from the royal council of the Silent Brotherhood is here. Let us give praise." And all the priests and masters stood and said, "All hail. What message from the royal council do you bring?" And Jesus said, "My brothers of the Silent Brotherhood, peace on earth, goodwill to men. The problem of the age has been solved. A Son of Man has risen from the dead, has shown that human flesh can be transformed into flesh divine. Before the eyes of men, this flesh in which I come to you was changed with speed of light from human flesh. And so I am the message that I bring to you. To you I come, the first of all the race, to be transmuted to the image of Allah. What I have done, all men will do, and what I am, all men shall be. But Jesus said no more. In one short breath, he told the story of his mission to the sons of men, and then he disappeared. The Magi said, "Some time ago we were read this promise, now fulfilled, upon the dial plate of heaven. And then we saw this man who had just demonstrated unto us the power of man to raise from carnal flesh and blood to flesh of Allah, a babe in Bethlehem. And after many years, he came and sat with us in these same groves. He told the story of his human life, of trials, sore temptation, buffeting, and woes. He pressed along the thorny way of life till he had arisen and overthrown the strongest foes of Allah and man, and he is now the only master of the human race whose flesh has been transmuted into flesh divine. He is the good man of today, but every one on earth shall overcome and be like him, a son of Allah. These events occurred before he was 30 years of age, and the events after he had arisen from the dead. He appeared back to India, Europe, and Africa in the land of Egypt, and made himself known unto the world. These events are the 18 years which are absent in your, quote, Holy Bible. The events of John the Baptist, John taught by the Egyptian sage, the meaning of baptism and how to baptize himself. And after he was baptized, he was taken to the age of 12 years into Africa, the land of Egypt, and there remained in the Egyptian schools 18 years. And then he learned his duty as forerunner of Jesus. That concludes today's reading. Chapter 19. Jesus appears fully materialized to the Eastern sages in the palace of Prince Ravana in India, to the magician priests in Persia. Three wise men speak in praise of the personality of the Nazarene. That comes from the Holy Koran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by the noble prophet, Drew Ali.